dancing fearless.
I'll move on to section 9, which is the science of freedom. The main theme of my book concerns these questions: how philosophy as an art relates to freedom, what freedom is, and whether we do or can participate in it. Scientific discussions are included because it is science, at long last, that will throw light on these questions, which are the most intimate that concern humanity. These pages offer a philosophy of freedom. 3 things are mentioned here: how philosophy as an art relates to freedom, what is freedom, and are we free or can we be free? Now, we've been discussing philosophy as an art. Well, it goes back to that intuitive experience of thinking, a philosophy that's happening within pure thought. There's an intuitive impulse that's going to tie it into freedom. And what is freedom? It's a path of the development of freedom where you keep learning about overcoming a bias, overcoming some compelling force in the outer world. And it's a whole process of developing freedom. You can look at it as a whole book of determinants that try to take away your freedom, that try to determine you in a certain way rather than you self-determining yourself. Any possible hindrance to human freedom that exists, you'll probably find in this book. Then it will discuss how to identify this thing and then, overcome it so that you can be a self-determined, free individuality. One of the issues of spiritualistic theory is that it often is not applied. That's one of the things that I really liked about the philosophy of freedom. It's real clear on how you can apply it.
So how do you apply it?
First, I try to understand it. I try to grasp the observation that's being made and identify that within myself. I guess the biggest step in applying is to become conscious of that event within yourself, how thoughts happen, biases within thought, the different cognitive processes of how they work, how perception works, how to be aware of that first impression you have of something, hold back. You have to bring the theory into practice. And then there's a place in the second part of the book about characterization of an action, where you can answer the question whether you're free or not. What that involves is you act, you perform a deed, and then you examine that action and say, okay, what was the determining factor of that deed? Was it an ethical idea that I originated? Or was it an institution or some unconscious motive within myself? I mean, why did I act? Now, that's not as difficult as you might think, because for it to be a free act, we need to be able to find a conscious motive that we determined. If we can't find that, then it wasn't a free act. To discover some unconscious compelled action can be very difficult, but we don't have to do that because we're trying to determine whether it's a free act. That means that if it's a free act, there's a conscious motive that we can identify that should not be that far away. So it's not as difficult as you might think to determine whether an action is free or not.
What sticks out for me the most is the comparison between a composer who has to employ the rules of theory in order to create a composition, and how that is really what the philosopher is doing, is taking these ideas. But it's not just random ideas, it's understanding the principles before you can craft. You're crafting, you're applying it to the deeds to your actions in the world. I have taken musical theory multiple times, and when I'm in the class, in the beginning, people want to just emote. They want to just create music based on whatever they're feeling in the moment. And the theory teacher will bring them back to understand. Before they can do that, they really have to, if they're going to stay in a legitimate music program, they have to learn the rules of what you can and can't do. And then once you really know that and you can create within that framework, then you can branch out knowingly and creating other types of composition. But you have to understand the core principles before you can really go anywhere in the musical community. So I'm relating that a lot to genuine philosophers have been artists in concepts. Human ideas have been the medium of their art, and scientific method, their artistic technique. That resonates for me as a music therapist, not just in terms of the musical side of it, in terms of composing, but in terms of the application of engaging in an individual or a group therapeutic process would be the same. You would need to work with different concepts, but then you have to understand scientific method. They said scientific method is the artistic technique. This is just giving us an overview of what we gain as we enter into the journey with Rudolf Steiner as we go through the book together. I want to know more about the application. Like, I really like what you were saying about how you apply the principles. And as we read the book, I want to understand more, because I've read through the book, but I've not understood, anywhere near the level that you're talking about as far as the application of the principles and using scientific method as an artistic technique. I read ahead in the book, of course, when he talks about the billiard ball, observing the billiard balls. And I'm trying to relate that to how I am making connections using concepts in terms of dealing with my own personal issues. That's how I'm looking at it right now. But I'm looking forward to us going through the book together and seeing, oh, this is what he means here, or this is the direction he's giving us, because he's obviously giving us very clear examples, but I'm not getting it to the degree that I need to really apply it in an effective way.